Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. Today I have my good friend 0x SimpleFarmer. He is the founder of Clutch Market. Maybe you've used it, but for people that are unfamiliar with Clutch Market, give them a quick introduction to what is Clutch Market and what are you guys trying to accomplish there? Quick disclaimer, we app only for informational purposes, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our opinions and not financial advice. Jax and our guests may hold positions in the companies, funds, or projects discussed. Please do your own research.
Hey, Jax. Thanks for having me on, first of all. So Clutch Market is essentially a decentralized version of FanDuel, which also allows users to place bets on real-world events and so like political events, things of that nature. And we're actually sourcing odds from Polymarket. So this is essentially the first Polymarket parlay platform in existence.
All right, so let's imagine somebody's like not as familiar with the betting ecosystem. I'm sure many of our listeners will be, but give us kind of like an example, like what is Polymarket, and then how do you guys, implement things like parlays on top of it?
Yeah, so Polymarket is really cool. They were actually building for a long time and continuously improving their product before they gained traction. But what they've always focused on is giving crypto users and Web3 users the ability to bet on anything. So not just sports, but also real world events. They really took off during the big submarine debacle. If you remember when the submarine was lost, people were betting whether it would be found or not, essentially. And at that point, people started to also take on different kinds of real world event bets within Polymarket. Users essentially pick yes or no. They're usually two-sided bets unless there's like 4 or 5 outcomes. And as you purchase one side of the bet, you actually get tokens for that side. Later, those tokens get exchanged for liquidity. What that means is that Polymarket actually ends up being a really good data source as well. And so what we're doing is taking the data from Polymarket and converting it into odds within a parlay platform. And parlays, just to give layman's terms, are essentially multi-leg bets, right? You get higher odds because you're combining 4 or 5 outcomes together for a potential bigger payout.
And I'm not the biggest bettor myself, but the way I understand it, so I'm really into college football. So let's say I think the USC Trojans are going to win, and I think the Miami Hurricanes are going to win. And then maybe I'm like also interested in the NBA, and I'm like, and the Sixers are going to win. By combining all of those bets together, obviously the odds of all of those actually hitting is much lower, but the payout's much higher. Is that a good explanation? Could you walk us through maybe kind of like the customer journey of creating a parlay?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're exactly right. If at any point, if one leg of your bet misses, your entire bet is graded as a loss. So as a customer, for example, within Clutch Market, you would go onto the homepage and you'd be looking at either Polymarket bets. Here, you would usually go for crypto price predictions. So whether the price of Bitcoin will hit 120,000 this year, for example, or real world events. For example, if Trump will come to a tariffs deal with China. This is something that's actually a pretty hot bet right now. While other bets might be like sports. So you want to go into your league you're looking for example, NBA, NFL, MLB, and then you can select from games, matches. So that's where 2 teams are meeting each other within an event, or player props. Player props are essentially over-under bets on player statistics. So that could be like 3-pointers made within an NBA game, touchdowns over-under within an NFL, baseball, RBI, things like this.
Now, listeners that may be less familiar with the betting ecosystem might be like, sounds cool, but I've got that on FanDuel, or like maybe talk to them a little bit about like, what are the gaps in betting? Like why do people need to bet on crypto?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, right? What makes Clutch better than FanDuel? Why not just do it on FanDuel? The first thing is that Clutch is a non-KYC platform, right? So you're not actually having to submit your personal details. In terms of privacy, it's definitely a big improvement. The other major factor is Polymarket events. So on FanDuel, you actually can't bet on the price of Bitcoin going up or down and combine that with a sporting event. So being able to parlay both the real world events with sporting events is something that's unique to Clutch, and it doesn't exist within any other crypto DApp. Predictions markets will allow you to do this on a single basis, so one event at a time, but you can't actually parlay them into multiple things. Another big thing is that this is actually a decentralized parlay platform. And what that means is that it uses a liquidity pool to pay out users. And that liquidity pool has no centralization point, means anybody can deposit liquidity into Clutch and earn yield on their deposits. So for example, Clutch has been live for approximately 45 days now on Arbitrum 1. We had an initial deposit from the treasury of 25,000 in USDC. Currently, that deposit stands at $29,000. So earned roughly $4,000 within 45 days. We're on track for over 200% APY for the year, which would be the best deal ever created on stablecoins within crypto.
Yeah. And so one thing that people are always like conscious of, they're like, okay, I give my funds to the liquidity pool. But like if you look at something like Uniswap, you have like issues like impermanent loss. Are the people that are putting their money into the liquidity pool essentially betting that like, all right, the house is going to win, thus the returns are going to be better? Is that how it works?
Essentially, yes. The thing is, I mean, as is exemplified with the massive success of FanDuel and DraftKings, they're billion-dollar corporations. The house is very profitable, especially within the parlay model. The parlay model gives users higher odds, but has a much lower likelihood of the bets hitting. Hence, some users do win really big, but most of the time people do lose their bets, and it ends up being a really stable yield source as long as there is volume. And what we're doing in that regard is we're trying to make sure there's always consistent volume on Clutch, and so far so good.
Yeah, and one interesting thing, I used to live with a guy that did growth consulting for essentially influencers in the betting space and in the like financial services space as well. Kind of funny that they're both linked. Is he would say that if you're really good at picking stocks, you know, your brokerage it might call you and be like, "Hey, we'll give you a higher credit line, we'll give you this, that, and the other thing." He says, if you're really good at sports betting, he's like, not only will they not give you a credit line, they're actively trying to ban you because
Yeah.
it's a very different market. Now, is this one of the reasons you start to see maybe an increase in like, you know, crypto betting? Or is it just this like ability to, you know, connect disparate trades together, not just NBA to NFL, but being like, all right, Trump says this, plus I think, you know, this tariffs outcome, plus Sixers bet.
Right. Yeah, well, I think there's actually there's a lot to dive into there, and there's a lot of expansions that are both in the works for Clutch as well as things that probably I haven't even thought of yet. Uh, One thing is that yeah, obviously users don't like the ability to be banned, and given that this is functioning via smart contracts, I can't blacklist anybody from the platform, nor do I wish to do so. However, we did go through that initial painstaking process of identifying and actually helping the LLM that we've integrated within the D app to identify correlated bets, right? So the biggest problem that a sportsbook can face is users winning correlated bets. Essentially, if we allowed users to both parlay the increasing price of Bitcoin with the increasing price of Ethereum, we'd be paying out really high odds for something that is almost guaranteed to be true. If the price of Bitcoin goes up, the other leg will naturally, most likely, win. So this is a correlated bet. Our LLM actually identifies these bets and blocks them directly on the UI. And that way we're protecting the bank and the liquidity pool providers.
That makes sense. I hadn't thought of that. I remember when he was telling me there's these people that are really good at like essentially reading micro bets, and he's like they're so good that they get banned like really fast because they're really like attuned to chain events. So that makes sense. So you have an LLM that, okay, so let's actually walk through the customer journey. You know, I'm Jax, you know, I'm like, let's see if I can get lucky this weekend. I log into Clutch, I sign in presumably with my wallet, and then I go in and I want to make a bet. So walk me through how I would get started and how just a user that's new to all of this stuff, how they would get started and what things would look like. Because maybe I did want to be like, Trump tariffs plus increase in Bitcoin. Maybe those are too correlated. I don't know.
Yeah. So first of all, you'd go on the website, and if you don't have a smart wallet on Clutch Market, we've created the option that you can sign up with socials or email. So you can sign up with Facebook or your email or your X. At that point, the D app will automatically generate a smart wallet for you. And we've actually connected these smart wallets with something called Alchemy. Alchemy is essentially helping us provide gas for users. So all crypto transactions for people who are in the Web3 space do require gas. And so what we're doing is we're sponsoring gas for any user who uses Clutch for the first time via socials. It's unlimited until we run out of gas. So for the time being, it should cover users for a fairly long period of time. After that, the user would go in there and they can either choose to be the bank. The Be the Bank page is where they would provide liquidity and earn yield on their deposits, either in the Clutch token or in USDC. Or users can go on there and they would start putting together their parlay. So on the homepage, you'd actually see a selection of Polymarket, sports, politics. And then you're just going to essentially go into these categories and select some bets. As you're selecting yes and no, this works very similar to FanDuel. Your parlay sheet will essentially start to form, and then you can place your bet. When you place your bet, it'll show you your potential win. And yeah, after that, you can track your active bets within the My Bet section. Something that we're actively working on expanding and will be released within the next 7 to 10 days here, so a bit of alpha, is we actually have an OTC desk that we already built the contracts for. And the Clutch Market platform, the way that you retain your proof of bet, essentially your receipt proving that you made the bet, is that the platform is actually an NFT generator. So each bet you create generates an NFT which corresponds to your bet. And that NFT can be read across any wallet you send it to. So what that gives us the ability to do with our OTC desk is users can essentially sell their parlays that are in the money. For example, if you have 2 events that have hit as a win and you have 1 event that hasn't resolved yet, you could sell your bet for already a 50% win. Somebody could potentially be interested in buying it, assuming the last leg would win as well. Our OTC desk will allow users to do that, essentially list their parlay NFTs for a smaller amount than their final win.
Yeah, this was something I hadn't fully understand. I had this roommate that was very into betting, and my understanding of betting was it was like, okay, I'm gonna bet that the Miami Hurricanes are gonna win the sports game, and he's like, no, that's like your intro bet. He's like, then you're actually hedging during the game as you're seeing real time things. You're actually placing additional bets to try to reduce the overall risk. And it's much more akin to, financial trading than I had previously thought of. So I'm quite curious, how did you get into this space? We have a lot of people that are, aspiring builders and founders and are always looking for ideas. And this seems to be one that have definitely hit market resonance and quickly growing.
Yeah. So we initially were building on what was called Senko chain. It's a layer 3. So just for people who don't know, Ethereum is a layer 1. Arbitrum is a layer 2. It's built on top of Ethereum. On top of Arbitrum, there were layer 3 networks. And those are very niche. We would call that the trenches of crypto. Senko was originally a gaming chain. So there was a lot of people who are really, really into deep crypto lore. And anybody who got there pretty much had to bridge their funds twice to even get there. So they're real crypto OGs. So we're originally building there. Yeah. So we're originally building there as just like a meme coin for fun. And then I decided to build utility on top of the meme coin that I created. As the market cap was growing, I felt it was my responsibility fiscally to the investors to kind of improve it. Although I feel that most people probably don't feel that same responsibility.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. So what I did was I did a couple things. I did like a NFT gated mini games. I forked an options trading protocol, some fun stuff like that. And then it continued to evolve. Eventually I built a predictions market, which is the same form as Polymarket, with some different improvements. We actually use like an AI to decide who won and lost games, while Polymarket uses an oracle, right? So this is a small difference, but it's kind of a big deal because some people actually complain about the results of oracles. I tend to find that AI can be the best referee for such things. Anyways, as we built out the predictions market, we found that we were struggling to gain traction and volume. And the reason being is with the predictions market, the odds are essentially set by the bettors, right? So as one side or the other side gains more volume, the odds change. So if you don't have a lot of volume, you're not going to get even odds. And nobody really wants to be the first person betting on a predictions market. So essentially the house would have to seed every market to artificially generate those odds. So then I decided to continue to evolve on that concept. And that's how I came up with Clutch. So I was thinking about the model of FanDuel, and I think aspiring investors love the idea of investing in something that's a decentralized form of something that makes a lot of money. So banking, lending, perps, that's like GMX, for example, lending, things like Pendle and all these crypto apps that generate a lot of money are just decentralized versions of things that generate money in the real world as well. So I thought, why not do that with FanDuel, right? Why not do that with DraftKings? So I tried to create the best platform possible and continuously evolve it into something better and better. As we got into Arbitrum 1, we got into direct contact with the Arbitrum team. They really love the proprietary functions and the ideas behind the D app. They're openly supporting us. They've actually given us a sizable grant to continue growing, which is great because, truth be told, it's a small team. It's myself and just 3 devs. And now we're trying to attack the aspect, which might be actually the most difficult step of marketing, right? Bringing this thing into the next level, mass market adoption, and hoping for that snowball effect. And that's actually
Yeah.
one of the reasons I reached out to you initially when we spoke.
Yeah. So probably listeners will know we make videos for the Arbitrum Foundation, and we're quite close to them. We're big fans. So yeah, in terms of like the marketing, it seems like one, by default, because you were like with the real like crypto OGs in a L3, which required two bridges, like people are really bought into the idea. They're probably skewing higher to the degen end of the spectrum. So this is actually a classic marketing thing, is you really want to serve like one core audience really well and then expand out. So now you're expanding into the Arbitrum ecosystem. And how's it been going in terms of getting, some of the traction in Arbitrum?
Yeah, so far it's been going good. Like we're kind of trying to take it on a case by case basis, going onto one island, conquering that island, and going out to another island, conquering that one. I got that idea from an intelligent individual I spoke to. But yeah, we're continuing to build. One of the challenges that we're all facing is that people are calling this the attention cycle. So this has been generated essentially by the pump fund model, the meme coin launcher model. Pump fund pretty much allows users to create meme coins. You watch them pump hard, and then people, really quickly invest and have the potential to get like 100x or 1000x within 24 hours. Although their chances are infinitesimally small, it's equivalent to playing the lottery. That being said, I do still believe that there's a large interest in good tech, proprietary solutions to real world problems. And that's what we're focused on at Clutch, right? I think within really poor countries, for example, you end up having a lot of inequality between the upper class and the lower class, because you have, for example, a lot of times upper class casino owners, they create large amounts of sports betting and sportsbook casinos all around the towns. The poor people aspiring to be rich are taking their minimalistic salaries, going into these, betting locations, losing their money, and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Clutch is defying this model, right? We're giving that potential power back to the users. Anybody can have a piece of the house. Nobody has to be just a bettor anymore. And I think it's fun that way. I think it's better, and I think it's a model that the world is going to lean into with time. We are progressively moving towards a world that's more decentralized. I still do believe in DeFi. I believe in good ideas and smart people building smart things. That's what Arbitrum is all about. And Arbitrum is filled with good people. And that's one of the reasons I aligned with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I had to, now that I'm thinking, if I had to market this company, well, one, I would look at who the existing apps are on Arbitrum. So like, obviously there's GMX, there's Pendle, there's this, that, and the other thing. But the person that does like stable coin yield farming might not be degen enough to actually place parlays. So you actually then have to like subcategorize the other dApps and be like, okay, which dApp actually corresponds more to our user? Or maybe the person that's doing yield farming might want a piece of the house. So then, because all these crypto apps, this is one tricky thing about marketing crypto apps, is they're almost always two-sided marketplace, sometimes even three-sided marketplaces when a token gets introduced. So it's it's always a fun experience for sure. But that's very exciting. You guys are expanding in Arbitrum, really trying to put the push out. I've got two ideas as we talk marketing here on the pod. One is to identify the dApps, find out what their core users are, and be like, all right, this person would be interested likely in being the house. All right, this person would be likely interested because they're into perps and maybe like parlays as an example. The other thing would be to stress on that element, be like, hey guys, if you're winning, we don't care. We want good bettors here on Clutch. Now that might ultimately be not good for the business, because like you probably don't want the best bettors, because that's bad for the house. But that's who I would then start reaching out to, is like these different gambling influencers. They'd be like, hey, you guys are getting banned on sportsbook. Because people might not know this. I only know this because I used to live with a gambling growth consultant. Is people get banned, then they actually go to other people. They'll go buy losing accounts so that they can get back on the platform. So it's like a very weird workarounds one has to do. But I could talk marketing all day, every day. So I'm quite curious, like, you guys obviously chose to go with Arbitrum. Had you considered any chains? People that come to mind for me would have been probably like Bearchain. They're a bit more on the degen cycle. Like, what else had you guys evaluated?
Yeah, I mean, once the Clutch platform was released in its beta form on our L3 Senko chain, we actually had a lot of chains reach out. Superseed, Bera directly reached out to us, for example. And there's a lot of chains who want us to expand and become a multi-chain platform, or make our main base on their chain. There's no doubt about it. So there are chains that have more makers than Arbitrum, but my bet is actually I'm buying low on Arbitrum. Right, I'm keeping all my Arbitrum stock and I'm holding on to it because I know the people, I met the people, and I've met people from multiple chains, and I've had really positive interactions. And I believe at the end of the day, behind all the computers, behind the phone screens, is a human being, right? And I think human to human interactions are going to win the day. I think the structure behind the pump fund model in Solana is actually net extractive, and it's probably a net negative for new users within the crypto space. It's not really revealing the best parts of crypto. Rather, it's a hyper inflated version of perhaps the worst part of crypto, which is where people invest, hoping to make 100x on their money within a small amount of time. That being said, I think Clutch is aligned with a very popular form of gambling, which already exists within the world. FanDuel, DraftKings, they have a huge user base. And it could potentially be a bridge between those Web 2 and Web 3 users. It could be for Web 2 users their first exposure into the crypto space. It can't be overstated enough, in my opinion, how much, especially crypto OGs, people have been doing this for a long time. They think that the process of downloading a smart wallet and filling it with funds, using MetaMask and Rabby, is quite easy. And in my opinion, it's actually rather complicated.
It's horrible. Yeah. It's absolutely.
We've been doing it for so long.
My friend had sent me $5,000 for rent in USDT, and in MetaMask, I guess at the time it hadn't automatically imported those tokens, so I just thought I had lost $5,000. I was like sweating profusely. I was like, "Did you send it to the wrong address, maybe?" And I was like, "No, it's in the right address. I don't understand this. There's all these chains you have to choose from." Yeah, so I actually my general thesis is in the next, hopefully, in the next 1 year, people won't think that much about what chain they are, from an Arbitrum perspective or from a bearer chain perspective, as we move to more intense and cross chain actions that people will largely, it's like my mom does it. She has no idea that Facebook is built in PHP. She doesn't know what server, she doesn't know if it's an AWS or they local, she doesn't know any of this stuff, and nor should she. And I suspect that's where we're going. And then it's hey, the best crypto experiences should feel largely indistinguishable from Web 2 experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually seen this quote from a close friend of mine. Is Mesky. He's also a business developer within crypto, and he said, "Once DeFi is good enough that everyday users are using it within their everyday lives, but not knowing they're using it, at that point we've made it." So in a lot of ways, I've built a factory on an island, and I'm selling goods out of my factory, but I'm kind of still waiting for the bridge that's going to bring the general populace onto that island. I think the project behind creating a new form of smart wallet, essentially a much easier way to onboard into all of these dApps, is something that has to be taken on by somebody, and most likely will be solved by somebody. Necessity is the mother of invention. So maybe actually these dips in the market are net positive because people are going to be working harder to improve their products.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I was talking with a potential investor for one of my companies, and he was at the Digital Asset Summit in New York. And it's a much more institutional thing. Anytime you get at a New York Summit, it's much more institutional. And he's like, people were really excited about Solana. They're really excited about Bitcoin. These were Wall Street bankers. And then if you went to ETH Denver, which I did, the mood was kind of bearish. I assume Token 2049 is going to kind of feel bearish. To me, it almost feels like crypto is evolving into less the people that were into it initially, maybe for more of the cypherpunk stuff, to being more institutional where, truthfully, people are just going to take what has product market fit and probably just export it into Web 2 world. And we'll have maybe a Web 2.5. I don't know what you think about that, but that's kind of where I'm seeing things go.
I think that's what Clutch is. I think Clutch is a Web 2.5 app. And in that regard, crypto is also just a lot of crypto culture, especially degen culture, is really alienating to half the populace of the world, which is females. Yeah. So if you go to crypto conferences, you'll see that it's evident. There's very few females, but the teams, one of the teams at least, I'm not saying that no other team is doing this, but Arbitrum employs a lot of women. And I think that they might be one of the leaders in onboarding females into the crypto space, which I think is going to be huge.
Yeah, well, actually, maybe I'll have a more controversial take on this one, is when I hang out with my girlfriend and other women, they are rarely talking about sports betting. just almost
Yeah.
never. And
Yeah, that's
when
true.
when I hang out with guys, there's something about speculative financial instruments that like really tickles the male. The males, like I don't know for what reason that is, but like of course there are tons of women in Web3, but I don't know, something about speculative financial gain just always
Yeah.
seems to be my male friends. I don't know. Could be
Women
wrong.
are definitely more risk averse than men. We have a higher
Yeah.
probability of dying as well.
Dying, yeah, speeding.
Yeah.
We're much more costly on insurance. So I think some
Yeah.
of it is baked into the pie, but of course, like, one thing I've noticed is a lot of my female friends, they're really good marketers. And
Yeah.
I suspect this is because they're very attuned to like, interpersonal dynamics. Like you can kind of set them up with a computer and a standing desk in like a foreign land and they'll be like pretty all right. Like you do that to a lot of my female friends, they would be not happy, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this all comes down to when we talk about what Clutch is and the product that I'm making. It seems binary, right? It's not binary. It seems very hyper focused on
Yeah.
the sports betting. But like I said, in my opinion, it's really more than a sports book, and it's about being more than a sports book. It's really about giving power back to the people. My favorite part about it isn't the sports bets; it's the decentralization. It's 100% my favorite part about the platform. Another thing that we're doing is we're going to be launching an NFT soon because I actually do really enjoy NFT culture. I don't enjoy NFT pump and dumps, but I enjoy the culture behind NFTs. For example, Pudgy Penguins, all of their holders did a meetup during the last crypto conference in Thailand. They did like a huge pool party. I think that's a really cool thing within crypto. It creates an artificial tribe, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think that's fun. So we will be creating a NFT band Clutch as well. They're called Clutch Puppies, they're like these dogs. And so that'll be a little fun for the community as well. I think a positive marketing ploy as well.
Absolutely. Some positive alpha. Yeah. So tell us real quick some of the milestones and we'll wrap with finding out where people can find you online, where they can connect with Clutch.
Yeah. So on Clutch Market, we've reached 60,000 in bets within the first 45 days. So that means we're on track for roughly 600,000 in bets for the year. Hopefully, that should be even higher. We are expecting more betting as the market kind of corrects. In terms of liquidity deposits, we've reached over 300K in liquidity deposits on Arbitrum, and previously we had over 200K on Onchain. And so that is within the Be the Bank portion of the platform. And yeah, very much still in the early stages of a project. We are relatively new. I have never built a Web3 project before. I've never been part of a Web3 team. I'm just an individual, an entrepreneur who had an idea, and now I'm trying to put everyday consistent work into something and improve it progressively over time. So, not financial advice, but if it's something you'd like to invest in and learn more about, you can join our community on Telegram or message on X and follow along with what's going on. It's at Clutch Markets on X, or at my personal Twitter is at OxSimpleFarmer, and that's O like the letter O, not the number 0.
Perfect. And we'll obviously put all those in the description. I completely forgot to ask the question we have to ask every single guest. All right. So we got a lot of builders. We got a lot of aspiring founders that listen to the podcast. We always ask for one startup idea that you think is maybe like either underaddressed in the crypto markets or just in general. If you're like, if I had more time, I would be working on this. Or if like, if Clutch, like somehow all my employees were 100% self-sufficient and I didn't have to work on it, I would do this.
So I think the big piece that's missing within the crypto space is a connection to real world assets. And in terms of real world asset, you won't find anything much bigger than real estate. So my idea for a startup would be essentially a decentralized version of Airbnb, where people would tokenize properties, essentially. And if you own a portion of the tokens, that corresponds to a portion of the property ownership. And in that way, you would earn a percentage of the revenue generated from renting out that property. So that would be my idea. There's a lot that goes into that in terms of like legal work and stuff like that, but I think something that has potential. And I think some teams are actually working on real estate and crypto connections.
We've talked with a few. It's to me, it always seems like a difficult problem because then you're essentially investing in not only the property but the property management company itself.
Right.
So you're like, it's a much more complicated I'll call it investment, than being like, do I think the price of gold is going to go up and down? Which, of course, is still a difficult investment. But it's like, all right, now there's like multimodal investment theses. Like most people are going to have to understand cap rates and all kinds of stuff. Either way, I can get into real estate investing on another show. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Everyone, go get involved with Clutch Market. Go get involved with 0x SimpleFarmer. I'll put all the links in the description. Until the next time, let's continue building the future of Web3.